Well, the Nifty has hit a double century, but a couple of stocks are not participating. And one such stock is Britannia. The street doesn't like the numbers too much, so in an otherwise strong market, that stock is down close to around 1%. Mangalam joins in to run us through a brief analysis of those numbers and also what the management had to say in the con call. Mangalam, over to you.
Well, as far as Britannia's fourth quarter performance is concerned, it would go down as an operational miss. No problems with the company's sales and volume growth. Remember, the company reported a 9% growth in sales with a 8% domestic volume jump. But, you go down the P&L and you see that their input costs had actually inflated much higher than what the street had anticipated. And the company also spent more on advertisements in the fourth quarter than they had in as a percentage of sales in the previous quarters as well. So as a result of which the EBITDA grew by just around 11%. And that meant, coupled with higher tax expenses, the net profit declined by 3.5% as against street expectations of almost a 15% growth. All of this the street would have taken in its stride if the management was committed as far as growth is concerned, but that wasn't the case to be. In the conference call, the management said that the first quarter has seen some pantry stocking, but the industry and competitors, everyone is very well prepared. And in the FMCG sector, all the other companies are going into the first quarter with a favorable base because same time last year was the lockdown. Britannia has the opposite impact. Same time last year, they had a 20% volume growth. So will the company be able to better that or not? Those are a few headwinds that the street is facing, and which is why maybe they're giving that a pass today and all the other FMCG companies are rising.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Mangalam. And let me toss it straight away to Prakash. Prakash, what have you made of Britannia? With the lockdowns extending, should we give it the benefit of doubt?
No, I think so. While March numbers didn't excite the market very clearly because of the pressure on margins, and it's obvious sugar and wheat, both of them are on historic highs, so the key input raw material side was under pressure. But going forward, Britannia is probably one of the only players, Lata, who has such a well-planned, manufacturing and production platform. They have multiple places where they make, the logistics are in place, the warehousing is fine-tuned so well, and last year we saw how they kind of made the most of the need for packaged foods. And I think if the lockdown is any benefit to anybody, and I'm not saying it from any perverse, delight kind of a perspective, but if it benefits people, it is companies like Britannia. So you will see an improvement in all of those metrics suddenly after a quarter or two. And this will kind of be forgotten very easily. So I don't think this is something which is a slide which is going to be very secular. Things have kind of, been a bit tough in the last quarter for them on the raw material side, and that could also ease out. And once they get volumes, the pricing comes back. That's the key for branded players like Britannia, which are in the premium segment and not in the bottom of the pyramid segment as much. It's easier to pass on prices. So I'm quite confident that they'll tide over this crisis. And this would probably be an opportunity for those who always liked the stock but was, it was premiumly valued, and then you have this softness that gives you an opportunity. So good news and good prices never come together. So that's the case. I would believe you could buy into this on dips, even at current levels, but then you have to wait for at least 2 quarters for it to start changing the trajectory.
All right, Prakash, the market believes that the biscuit wasn't crunchy enough, but you believe that in fact maybe the dip is something that investors could look to get into with a bit of a longer term time horizon. But what looked good and what the bulls were gulping on in the past quarter was United Breweries. Cheers all the way. The stock is up close to 4%. United Breweries is the stock that I'm talking about. Nupur joins in for a quick analysis. Nupur.
Well, absolutely, Nigel. Before this second wave of COVID could hit us hard, economy was up and functional. People were traveling and going out with their friends and families. And as a result, demand and underlying profitability saw strong sequential recovery. We saw UBL reporting very strong operational quarter four performance, much ahead of street expectation. Top line was in line. Revenues up 8% on YOY basis, up 20% sequentially. Gross margins as as well as operating margins improved on YOY as well as quarter-on-quarter basis on the back of price hike, better state mix, and cost control measures that company took. There was an exceptional expense of 62 crore which had an impact on overall profits. But let's talk of volumes then. Q4 volumes up 9%. Do remember it's on low base but in line with the estimates, and for full year volumes down 39% due to prolonged restrictions and lockdown witnessed in first half of FY21. But going ahead, and this is important, due to the second wave of COVID, management indicated that industry outlook looks volatile. Overall impact will depend on the magnitude and duration of lockdown and restrictions, including any partial or full trade restrictions. But management also continues to remain optimistic about the long-term growth drivers of the industry. But do note stock trades at 60 times FY23 expected earnings.
Well, not cheap, but the bulls are gulping it, and in today's trading session, the stock is holding well in the green. Prakash, normally I would ask, should you be dipping into the stock? Does the stock deserve a sip? What do you think?
Oh, it does. See the acceptance levels for all these liquor stocks is that they have very high resilience in terms of the kind of pullback that they can show you on the screen is fairly strong as things improve, because it's always an anticipation of, and we saw how people queued up in Delhi when the lockdown was just announced and just a few hours before that. So this is something which is absolutely high on demand. There is no problem with that. It's the rationalization of costs that probably is something which the company will have to continue focusing on, and that's why the view on the street, Nigel, is so divided that some people believe that the company's done whatever it could, and some people of course feel that it could still make some headway in cost control, and hence the margins could probably come back as the operating leverage moves in. My sense is that given the pedigree, the Heineken presence that you have, the brand portfolio that this company has, I haven't seen any new contenders or challengers come in and take away market share as much as in the other spirits business that you have. Especially, IMFL and all are fairly competitive as compared to beer. This is more logistics, more distribution driven. And as things look up, it could kind of, start benefiting. But again, this is that example of time correction that I was referring to in my earlier chat with Lata, that the lockdown currently that we are experiencing could probably make things, delayed. So the readiness has to be for a delayed gratification and improvement in the stock. But I have always liked this name. It's something which you buy into as a representation of a huge consumption theme in the country, which has got a fairly secular, visible runway for growth. So no doubts on that. And it's a great business, a great company, run very efficiently.
Okay, and all points taken. Prakash, thank you very much. But between you and Nigel, I would prefer if you only took a sip when it comes to UBL. Somehow the word dip is reminding me of Shahi Snans, and we don't want it at this point in time. Certainly not with respect to UBL. Thank you very much, Prakash. Okay, well, it's time now that we invited our Alpha manager for the afternoon. Joining us now is Harish Krishnan, Executive Vice President and Senior Equities Fund Manager at Kotak Asset Management Company. Thank you very much, Harish, for joining us. Well, actually, I wanted to start with something macro, but somebody pushed in front of me your top holdings. And I must say that you must be a delighted guy today. Your top holdings are ICICI Bank, Axis Bank and HDFC Bank. You will continue to bank on the big banks?
Hi, Lata. Good afternoon. Yes, the larger banks clearly have showcased a reasonable resiliency in their earnings. More importantly, even as there is a turbulence in the form of the COVID second wave, most of these franchises have raised significant amount of equity capital. And to their credit, I think the larger banks haven't really seen a significant shock. The same time last year, we were very worried in terms of how it will play through in terms of banks' balance sheets and numbers, given the uncertainties around the COVID. What we've seen, at least so far over the course of the last 12 months, is that these larger franchises have actually done reasonably well. Their underwriting standards have been quite exceptional. Of course, the last 4-5 years, especially the corporate-oriented banks, have had significant challenges as far as the corporate NPS is concerned, and that also is seeming to come to an end. So I think from a larger bank perspective, that definitely remains one of our favorite bets at this point in time.
All right. Now, Harish, this is the thing troubling me with generally finance stocks, not the big ones. Clearly for them, the amount of MFI loans or MSME loans are likely to be a very small part of their total lending. But given that we are staring at probably 2 months wiped off of FY22, would you be tweaking your finance portfolio? I don't know what else you have. I mean, you do have Bajaj Finance, you do have SBI cards in your other funds. But how would you approach, anything less than the big banks when it comes to finance stocks?
So as far as our financial exposure is concerned, we're broadly focused on, say, 2 or 3 key areas. One is the liability franchises. Our sense is that the top 10 or top 15% of households are likely to have a higher savings pool, and where they channelize it, be it into asset management, be it into life insurance, be it into physical assets, including gold jewelry or real estate, and in terms of online shopping, etc., facilitated by cards. That is one area where we think it'll come back stronger in a post-COVID environment, and therefore that takes the lion's share of our portfolio. The second is, of course, as we just discussed, the larger banks, clearly from a positioning point of view of both gaining market share as well as the resiliency in the form of adequate capital buffers, holds them in good stead. Now coming to the third aspect, which you rightly described, that of, let's say, the smaller franchises, as well as microfinance institutions, catering to especially the bottom of the pyramid, as well as, say, significant rural presence. Now, here, I think we are far more circumspect. We wouldn't want to, leap ahead of time to get a sense that, things will be as normal as they were last year. Especially from a lot of competitive action point of view, I think a lot of smaller franchises have definitely dampen their execution. There is a challenge both in terms of market share gains for them, as well as cost of funding in a few cases. And of course, now with the COVID second wave, you also have challenges as far as collections and asset quality is concerned. So that's a space that is something that we would be wary of. Of course, we'll have to wait and watch. It's not to say that there are some great franchises out there. But we'll have to watch as the data comes out and then build our position accordingly.
Well, Harish, COVID has given the healthcare sector on the whole far more importance, and it's made everyone a lot more aware as well. My question to you is, as a percentage of your portfolio, pharma stocks constitute how much? And do you see an increased allocation to pharma stocks in the post-COVID era?
Right. So obviously it varies from portfolio to portfolio depending on the universe as well as the benchmark. But currently we are neutral to overweight the pharma space, both in terms of diagnostics, healthcare, and medical, as well as in terms of generic pharmaceutical companies. Now, with respect to while currently it is top of mind recall in terms of the need of medical infrastructure and medicines, I would hazard a guess that possibly we are close to the peak as far as this recall is concerned. And while there's no denial that these will be inherently strong franchises and will require a significant amount of increase in penetration post-COVID as things normalize, I think we are currently amidst possibly the worst of times And conversely or perversely, one can argue that this is the best of times for the stocks. And therefore, we wouldn't be wanting to increase allocations here. Yes, a few of them have done exceedingly well for us, especially those who have got, COVID-related drugs, vaccines, etc., which have done very well, as well as the diagnostic companies. And we would be looking at, trying to recalibrate this exposure as we see things normalize over the course of the next few months.
Okay. Harish, we've been speaking with epidemiologists, members of the task force, etc., and of course municipal commissioners as well. One common theme that we have got from all these biggies who either make policy or advise policy is that this restrictions in activity ain't going away anytime soon. Just listen to the Maharashtra Task Force Doc Shashank Joshi and the BMC Commissioner, and I'm coming back to you with more questions.
But test positivity rate has come down from 28% to around 14 to 16%. So clearly, Mumbai is flattened out and probably will show a downward slope. So I think the downward slope has already started. If you ask me very honestly, yes, those 3,800, 4,000 cases are very reassuring. The case fatality rate still remains low, but the numbers of deaths have gone up from maybe 30s and 40s to 80s and 90s, which is a reflection of the disease 2 to 3 weeks back. So clearly we are seeing that trend. But my biggest worry is that if the restrictions start getting eased out after 1st of May, and which I feel may and should not be done, at least till the end of May, then, again, we will see a spike going up.
The restrictions are common for the entire state of Maharashtra. But still, in many parts of Maharashtra, especially Vidarbha, the cases are not stabilizing. Some places, the cases are still increasing. Our load is almost 60,000 new cases every day. So unless things become better in the entire state, only then I am sure the state government can think of easing restrictions. Otherwise, you can't have islands of less restriction within the state, which can create problems.
Okay, see, that's the word. If you remove the restrictions, then there will be a spike, is what the medical guy says. And actually, I was trying to fish out for you even Gagandeep Kang's view that at the moment the infections are bursting in north, and they are, she expects, according to her projections, likely to go into rural areas and to the south. In that context, I wanted to ask you, your other fund that you have, Kotak Infrastructure and Economic Reform Fund, that will have a problem, isn't it, if you lose about 2-3 months in terms of capex?
Right. So I think we need to take a slightly longer term or a bigger picture kind of an approach, Lata. This has been a space which, over the course of almost, you can say, the last 7-8 years or maybe even longer, has been, pretty much stuck in neutral gear for a reasonable amount of time. There are 4 engines of growth within the infrastructure side. You've got government capex, you've got private capex, you've got housing, and then you've got, PPP or public-private partnership. And, barring government capex, which has been reasonably okay, especially the central government over the course of the last 4-5 years, broadly, every other thing has been struck in neutral gear for a reasonable amount of time. So when we are looking at this fund, I'm not so sure whether 2-3 months of COVID restrictions, change the entire complexion of our outlook for this team. Our outlook for the team is predicated on the fact that, yes, government spending or government focus on infrastructure is continuing, and it's a welcome development as far as our view on their ability to stimulate the economy through infrastructure is concerned. On the private side, I think we are starting to see some green shoots. Again, it's too early to call out for it, but especially in cement, especially in steel, and a lot of automation, a lot of China plus manufacturing, etc. Again, this is going to be a very different cycle from what we've seen in 2003 to 2007, wherein each order used to be a 10,000 crore power plant, etc. It's going to be more in the 500 crore. I was just on the call of a bearings company, which said that they had initially planned 1,000 crore outlay over the course of the next 3 years, which they are now increasing it by under 20%. So we are starting to see some amount of green shoot as far as private capex is concerned. Again, nowhere out of the woods, but headed in the right direction. Coming to housing, yes, it's been a long gestation period for about 6-7 years where, housing stats haven't gone really anywhere. Starting to see some semblance, of course, COVID has kind of further put there's been some delay in terms of offtake, but again, I think we are headed in the right direction. PPP, I think, is a long way out. So therefore, when we look at it to this context that, from one engine firing, you're likely to see 2 and possibly 3 engines firing. I think from a direction point of view, we continue to be in the right space. Yes, one needs to be worried when all the 4 engines fire, which is when, you start to wonder whether in a theme like this, whether we are at the peak of the cycle and therefore we need to get worried. So yes, it is a delay, but it doesn't change our overall outlook for that space.
Okay. Yes, you're right. After the perhaps vaccination, the vaccination is either 6 months for a large part of the population, or maybe 7 or 8 months, but it's coming. And therefore, perhaps the bet makes sense. One only needs to be a little more patient. Thank you very much, Harish Krishnan, for joining us. Even as you were speaking, there was that important information coming in. This is not just for Maharashtra, but for the entire economy. This spells good news that Maharashtra has decided to pick up the bill for all citizens between the ages of 18 and 44. 5.7 crore people is what they are estimating, and the government has decided to pick up the bill. That, I think, is going to be the way forward, with perhaps creating a fund in which private sector may chip in. I don't know how it will proceed, whether the court will mandate the same price for the centre and the state government, which is what the state government is asking, and the centre and the court has asked the central government to provide its explanation for the discriminatory pricing. But in any case, free vaccine is something which is very, very good news for everyone, both from the health and the economy point of view. Quick break, and thereafter the key earnings for tomorrow is what we'll discuss. Hindustan Unilever, Titan, Bajaj Auto, Ambuja Cements, so many of them. We are coming back for the details in a minute. We'll also get you an insight into the dealing rooms in our segment, D Street Chatter. And we will get you the buy today, sell tomorrow, or the sell today, buy tomorrow strategies from our technical experts.